Welcome back to Shades of Tone Motives. It's your girl, Tone Motivates. And today's episode might feel uncomfortable. And it's not because it's harsh, but because it's honest. Today we are talking about people pleasing. Not the cute version. Not I just like helping people. But the version that quietly disconnects you from yourself. Now, before we go any further, I want to say this clearly. If you identify as a people pleaser, you are not weak, broken, or fake. You are adaptive. Most people-pleasing behaviors did not start as personality traits. They likely started as survival strategies. And that changes the entire conversation. So today, we're not trying to fix you. We're trying to understand you. Because awareness is the first form of healing. So, let's talk about what people-pleasing really is. Let's clear something up. People-pleasing is not kindness, empathy, being considerate, having a generous heart. People-pleasing is self-abandonment disguised as harmony. It's basically when you override your own needs to avoid conflict. You say yes when your body is screaming no. You manage other people's emotions at the expense of your own. And you equate peace with silence. Psychologically speaking, people-pleasing is often rooted in what's called fawning. Now, in trauma psychology, there are 4 primary survival responses, and that is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. The fawn response is when someone learns, if I make myself agreeable, useful, or invisible, I will be safer. Research on trauma responses show that fawning is especially common in people who grew up in environments where emotional needs were ignored or minimized, love was conditional, conflict felt unsafe or unpredictable, praise came from being good, easy, or mature for your age. So, if you were the child who didn't want to cause trouble, took on adult responsibilities early, learned to read the room quickly, or became emotionally intuitive very young, that wasn't coincidence. That was adaptation. Adaptions that once kept you safe can later keep you stuck. So let's talk about the science behind people pleasing. I want to talk data, not opinions, because studies in psychology consistently show that people who engage in chronic people-pleasing behaviors tend to experience higher levels of anxiety, increased emotional exhaustion, difficulty identifying their own needs, and lower relationship satisfaction over time. Why is that? It's because self-suppression activates the stress response. When you regularly silence yourself, your nervous system doesn't relax. It stays alert. There's research showing that emotional inhibition, holding back feelings to maintain approval, is linked to increased cortisol levels, weakened immune response, and higher risk of burnout. Your body keeps score even when your mouth stays quiet. Another important concept here is attachment theory. People pleasing often aligns with anxious or disorganized attachment styles, where safety is tied to being liked, being needed, and being chosen. So approval doesn't just feel good, it feels necessary. That's why people pleasing isn't a simple habit to break. It's wired into emotional regulation. Now, guys, I had to check myself when it came to this because I feel like I can be a very straightforward person. Sometimes people might look at me as a little aggressive or intimidating, and I don't feel that way, of course. I just feel like I have direct communication. And even though I had direct communication, I pride myself in being there for people and supporting others, but I started to have to wean out those who kept me around because of those reasons. So it wasn't necessarily genuine, but they knew that I would be a person that they can count on or run to, so they always made sure that I was either available to them or nearby in case they needed something, if that makes sense. So I'm right here with you guys. So let's talk about signs you're people pleasing. I want to slow down here because this is where people start recognizing themselves. You might be people pleasing if you feel guilty resting, you rehearse conversations before setting boundaries, you apologize excessively even when you've done nothing wrong, you feel responsible for other people's moods, you struggle to answer the question, what do you want? You feel anxious when someone is disappointed in you. You over-explain your decisions. And you feel relief when plans get canceled, even if you wanted them. Now, here's a big one. You mistake being needed for being valued. Let that sit. Many people pleasers don't feel worthy unless they are useful, and that belief is heavy. So even with everything that I said, guys, there were people that had me in their back pocket because I felt as though me being needed added value to me. And I had to let that sit too. So let's talk origins. People pleasing often develops in environments where love was unpredictable, praise was performance-based, emotional expression was unsafe or dismissed, and caregivers were overwhelmed, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. Now, as a child, you don't say, this environment is unhealthy. You say, let me adjust myself. So you become more agreeable, more responsible, more quiet, more emotionally aware. You learn that if I don't do or need too much, I won't lose connection. This is why many people pleasers struggle later with boundaries, assertiveness, self-trust. And that's because self-expression once felt risky. Now, why awareness matters. Here's the shift, guys. When you label people-pleasing as a flaw, you shame yourself. When you recognize it as a strategy, you soften. And softness creates change. Awareness allows you to ask new questions like, is this choice coming from fear or alignment? What do I need right now? And am I trying to keep the peace or keep myself safe? Healing does not begin with forcing yourself to be different. It begins with understanding why you became this way. I want to pause here and invite you into reflection. You don't need to write, just listen. Ask yourself, when did I learn that being easy was safer than being honest? Who benefited from me staying quiet? What parts of me did I tuck away to keep relationships intact? There is no blame here, only clarity. If this episode stirs something in you, that's not a problem. That's awareness knocking. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the cost of people pleasing emotionally, mentally, relationally. Not to scare you, but to show you what becomes possible when you stop disappearing. Until then, remember, you are allowed to exist without performing. You are allowed to take up space. And choosing yourself does not make you selfish. It makes you whole. As always, always love. To respond to a question, make a suggestion for an episode, to be a guest, or give feedback, reach out to us at info@tonemotivates.com. You can also find us on social media at Tone Motivates on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and at Shades of Tone _podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And as always, you can find us at tonemotivates.com, where all of those links are as well.